Good afternoon. Good evening. So much to everybody for joining in on time. My name is Pearl Uzokwe. I will be moderating today's session. Like I said, it's fantastic to have people joining in from all over the world. So whether it's good morning for you, good afternoon, or good evening, you are absolutely welcome. As you join, have seen this already. Some of you might know about it, but we're going to take a second to just speak to you about it. And it's the Influencing Mainstream Business course, which is currently open, and you can register for this right now. And there's a little bit of information on this, but I'll speak very briefly rather about it. It's a course that has just been launched. There's a form that you can fill out to give us feedback on it. And it's really just helping you. And sorry, one second. I think this screen's being enlarged. IMB, Influencing Mainstream Business course, it's a free course. We all love that. It's a free course that's been launched by Social Enterprise in partnership with Catalyst 2030, who we are, and Social Change Innovators as well. The course has been developed to provide social entrepreneurs, innovators with vital networks, with skills, with experiences, and with resources really that will allow you play that really important role of shifting the business community towards being a lot more sustainable, to including those inclusive practices that you will certainly be needing as you grow your organization. And just a little bit about this course. It is a 5 core module course. There are 11 optional modules and over 100 resources. That sounds incredible, especially as it's free. It provides a comprehensive learning experience for people who are devoted to essentially effecting good change in the business landscape. We all have heard about this, or most of us have heard about this. So you're bringing in your doing good plus you're doing well. It sounds like a great course to sign up to. So we just thought we'll take a minute to tell you about it. And this is one that you can certainly fill out a form and join, and there will be details shared in the course of this session today. Thank you very much. Now, this brings us on to the very first speaker that we have today. I'm very excited. Joining us all the way from Amsterdam today, we have Joshua van der Hurk. Please correct me if I haven't pronounced it correctly. But Joshua is the founder of an organization that I absolutely love the name, actually, Bamboovement. Is it Bamboovement? Bamboovement.
You got all the pronunciations right, Phil.
Okay. And it was founded in 2019. The goal of this organization is to get millions of people around the world excited about living sustainably and cutting out plastic. There's nobody really that cannot relate to that as an objective. And so thank you for taking this certainly on board as a key objective. And Bamboovement tries to offer a solution to plastic pollution and make our planet a cleaner place once again by replacing disposable, daily use plastic products with sustainable alternatives. Working with like-minded people, they basically work on innovative ideas to rid our world of plastic waste every single day. Thank you so much for being here, Joshua, and I will pass over the mic to you. So please tell us a little bit about your organization as a case study.
Yeah. Well, thank you first for the beautiful introduction. I think it was very well said. I couldn't have done it any better. So yeah, to stay within the theme here of influencing businesses, I wanted you all to briefly go over the journey that we've gone through with Movement, like how we started, what our focus has been, and the lessons that we've taken over the past years. And so I founded Movement about 5 years ago by now. What we do is we develop eco-friendly personal care products. Some you already know, like bamboo toothbrushes, hairbrushes. Others are maybe a bit more new, like we developed our own razors made from waste materials or toothpaste tablets. And the focus always been right from the start has been to focus on large companies. The reason for this is we believe with these large companies like airlines, hotel chains, big retailers, we believe we can make the most impact. We can influence these companies to change their way of purchasing, and that way remove a whole lot more plastic than we would be doing when we would be working directly to consumers. Um, so we started 5 years ago, and to be honest, I did not have a lot of experience in setting up a company, or also not a really big network within the airline industry or hotel industry. So what we started doing was to first and for all really define the problem. Like we knew these companies, even though if you think of airlines, you don't really think of sustainability, and for a very fair reason. But these companies do want to make changes wherever they can. So problem. Oh, I think. So
Thank you. Thank you.
the problem that these
to become more plastic free on board. The other reason was also that weight is a very important factor. Like you can think of every gram of weight they save on an aircraft actually reduces the amount of kerosene. And for like these couple issues, we started to create a proposal. How do our products fit in there? So instead of thinking about offering a solution ourselves, we first looked more into the industry, what are the problems that they are facing, and how does our product fit there. I think a lot of times when people start their own companies, and I think it's a very logical thing to do, but you very often think about it from your own. I've created this product, or I've created this service that is fixing this solution. But I think it's always good to first really listen to what your potential clients might think. What are actually their problems that they are facing? To get to that point for us was to really go to conferences, trade shows, or just online talks, online articles to really read about the industry and the problems that they have, to speak with people that have been in there for 20, 30 years. We were very new to the industry, but we learned so much within a very short time frame that way we found that they had problems that we didn't think of ourselves. And that way, for instance, we realized that our own bamboo toothbrush was lighter than a plastic toothbrush. But beforehand, we'd never have really thought about, okay, this is a problem that we are solving. We are offering an eco-friendly toothbrush. We're mainly focused on it from the sustainable point of view, whereas from the buyer of the airline, actually the weight was also a very important factor. So what I want to give away there is that it's very important, in my opinion, to first also take a look at who's your favorite client, your industry, where you want to become active, and try and get as much information as you can. See if there's trade shows in the area where you live that you can visit, or online conferences, or and try to collect information and then propose your solution to that and see how people react to it. And from that, we really refined the proposal that we had towards these big companies. And it enabled us eventually to be working together with KLM, one of the world's biggest airlines, who now we supply our bamboo toothbrushes and toothpaste tablets. And afterwards, once the ball started rolling, now two other airlines followed as well. And right now we have 14 proposals outstanding towards airlines. And I think it's really been because of the strategy where we first really tried to look and to listen, and then started to change our proposal more accordingly to the needs of these big buyers. And I think if you can do that in a way where you showcase that towards the buyer, in a way where they really understand it. So something else that we started doing now lately is we did life cycle analysis to see what is actually the impact that we are making with our products. And we saw that with our bamboo toothbrush, it emits 20 grams of CO2. A plastic toothbrush, for instance, that they are using emits 42 grams of CO2, which is more than 50% reduction in terms of CO2 emissions from a plastic toothbrush to our bamboo toothbrush. Then if you look at the website of big hotels or airlines or retailers, they're all talking about reducing their emissions. So now we customize a proposals again accordingly to that. We reduce 50% by switching from a plastic toothbrush to a bamboo toothbrush. I think it really helps in that way to convince the person that you're speaking with, the buyer or the sourcer, um, where they really feel like, okay, an issue that they're having has been solved for them. And that's eventually what you want to do. It doesn't really matter if you work with products, if you work with services. I think focusing first on the solution from their perspective and not your own is something incredibly important that you can be doing. Then the last tip I want to give you is when you start and you think like, okay, I do want to be influencing businesses, and I see the product or service that I have is a perfect fit. Like, make a list of top 5 or top 10 companies that you want to be working with, and then see like, okay, go through their websites, check out if they have any reports already, whether it's on sustainability or on social impact, and how you can contribute to that, and start thinking along. And you don't have to be working right away with all of them or with a handful, but try to get in touch with them. And if one person says no, look for a different person within the organization. LinkedIn is a very good tool for this. And don't take a no from one person at the company as a no from the total company, because there might be thousands of people working there, and maybe another person has a different opinion. They can actually be helping you out there as well. Also, it's possible, what we've been doing with retailers, if it doesn't work to get in, let's say, one big retailer with 2,000 stores, you can start it from a lower level. Do a trial with a couple individual stores, go to the store owners there and show them what you have. So then you go from bottom to top, basically. So there's various ways to approach this. And I think if you want to be working with larger clients, it's important that you have the information ready for them, but also do it step by step. If you get a lot of no's from the headquarters, see then if you can go from the bottom, work together, maybe on a pilot basis, get a lot of tests done, take the data from that, and then go back. And that can help you to really leverage the solution that you have. So yeah, this was in short. I think I had about 10 minutes, so I might be over it. I could be talking about this topic for hours. But if you have any questions, I think somebody already shared my LinkedIn here in the chat. Feel free to connect with me. You can send me any questions you have, and of course, I'm always happy to be thinking along with you.
That was, thank you so much, Joshua, for that. That was fantastic. And honestly, for me, I was making notes as well. I love the various things that you mentioned, from resilience. Just look and listen. Going into an industry, just take the time to really understand, because at the end of the day, it's really about solving problems, right? And you're thinking, how can I solve their problem and do it in a way that's sustainable? And I feel thrilled to know that the toothbrushes that I've seen on KLM have most likely come from your organization as well. It's great. We thank you so much for just sharing those nuggets of wisdom. And I know that we don't have much time for questions, but I'm just going to ask, are there any questions in the chat group just before we move on to the panel session? And thank you so much. So I believe we're moving on to the next panel session. So individuals, you want to be clicking on Joshua's LinkedIn, find him. He's giving you that open invitation. Use it. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now we are moving on to the panel discussion. And this is exciting because we have two incredible women here with us, again, from different parts of the world. And it's wonderful how, the lessons that we're learning that are really transferable and applicable, regardless of where you're joining from, once your mission is aligned. And having social entrepreneurs and social innovators in one space, it's really, really good to have you two ladies here. I'm going to take a little bit of time to do these introductions because I think that you are such impressive individuals. We thank you for your time. And I'm going to start with you, Rana. Just even talking about the title. Rana Dajani is a molecular cell biology professor. I love biology in school, but getting to professor level, this is no joke. So thank you so much, Rana, for being here. And Rana is a social entrepreneur, Schwab and Ashoka Fellow, well known to us in this space. She's a global thought leader. She's a writer, the founder of We Love Reading, president of the Society for Advancement of Science and Technology for the Arab World. Rana is a tireless supporter of building Indigenous research capabilities in the developing world and creating a mentoring program to support women scholars in STEM that was recognized by the National Academy of Sciences. By conducting studies and participating in planning, implementing, and carrying out policies intended to achieve such goals, Rana hopes to help in shaping our future world. Thank you so much, Rana, for being here with us. That is just a little snippet. Now, on to Sujatha. Thank you, Sujatha. I'm going to mention this again because, again, we're thrilled. This is the sacrifice, and this is what is really wonderful about this community. Sujatha is joining us from India, where it's later on in the day, so the good evening was reserved for individuals like yourselves. And thank you for being here. Wonderful cause close to my heart. Sujatha is CEO of the Pauline Group. And have I pronounced that correctly? Because I want to Pauline? Good.
Yes.
Pauline Group, where she sells sustainability products to underserved communities. She's creating women entrepreneurs from within the community. She's creating better living conditions for people in the same community. And what's wonderful is that Sujatha is basically utilizing past experiences. She has 30 years of corporate entrepreneurial social experience. Apologies. Please, can we mute anyone who's not speaking? Thank you. I'll say that again. So Sujatha is utilizing her past experience over 3 decades, no joke whatsoever, from the corporate entrepreneurial and social experience world, working in multiple functions, sales, channel sales, marketing, and global program management for R&D and engineering to add value, positively impact growth, and create new employment. Sujatha is an award-winning entrepreneur in 2023, 2022, and 2021. Whew, I don't know about you all, but just listening to this, I am motivated, energized again to do even more with my time, because you clearly see 2 examples of incredible women who have done so. So without speaking too much, we're going to jump right into the discussions. And so get your questions ready as you listen to this. I'm going to start with Rana, and I'm going to say, with this wonderful organization that you started, can you just tell us a little bit about key challenges that you expect organizations are going to face when they're trying to implement these social impact strategies that we're talking about within mainstream business practice? So this is saying you're not sidelining these social impact strategies. What advice do you have for the individuals on this call around the challenges that organizations will face when trying to implement them?
Thank you very much for the introduction and welcome everyone. Assalamu alaikum, as we say in my part of the world, peace upon you all. That's a very important question, and I'm going to share the answer by sharing my own experience. So I'm a little bit different from my colleagues here, because my program is about solving the problem of reading and falling in love with reading. And sometimes some initiatives are not easy to sell, to commodify, to become a business partner. So you have to be very creative. Hence, probably my science comes in and helps. And I'm sure many of those who are here are also that kind, that there's not a clear product. For us, what we do is we train women, men, and youth how to read aloud to children in their local neighborhood, in their local language, from the local context. And then that kind of allows them to discover themselves, their voices, literally and figuratively, to become change makers in their own right, trying to solve the problems that they see around them. So our program is kind of like scaling mindsets, changing of mindsets to become change makers, as our mission says. So, and when we wanted to partner with businesses, first it was about how can we get funding from the private sector, the corporate sector. Initially, when I was working with them, I was thinking, okay, this is a transaction. I have something, and I want to convince them that this is important to use for them to fund, to manifest their goal. And we did that first, right? So we talked with different partners from the private sector, trying to find what is their mission and goal. So I'll give you an example where we worked with a solar energy company. And we said, fine, you want to do solar energy? Why don't you train the local people how to read aloud? And we can create a children's book for these about solar energy that the women or men or youth can read aloud to the children. And so that way you will be funding us to train more people, to develop more literature, and you will be fulfilling your objective of raising awareness of the importance of using solar energy versus other types of energy. So in that sense, our goals aligned. So I think the first lesson here is that we need to align our goals as a social innovator with the goals of the private sector we're working with. And for example, here in this slide that we love reading, we work on multiple, our core is very simple. It's about training women to read aloud, as I said, but it touches so many other things like refugees. So if a company, we try to find the sweet spot where we both align. Is it about refugees? Is it about women's empowerment? Is it about youth? Is it about social awareness or, for example, psychological and mental health or early childhood development? So we try to find where we both align. And that's how we can partner with private sector. However, what I realized that it's so much work from us to convince the business partner, the private sector to work with us. And I think that's where I realized that my approach was wrong. My approach was too transactional. And what I wanted to do was actually come up with a partnership where we would co-design together, explore together, how can we fulfill the goal, rather than me to giving them a prescribed solution for them to pick up on. And when I shifted my perspective, it's kind of the whole world opened up. You know, sometimes you just move from one point of the room to the other, and suddenly you see a whole new room. And when I did that, suddenly all doors opened, because now we were talking as equals, as partners, not me begging them to listen to me to do something together to achieve the sustainable development goals that we are all working together to achieve. I'll stop there and continue later with other questions.
Thank you so much, Rana, for that. And and that's the beauty of getting it from different angles. So I'm going to go very quickly to Sujatha, just because I like people to have their own, to introduce from their own unique angle, what you've seen and what has worked. So I really like not just the solution, but also what you changed to get you to that point. Sujatha, wondering from your own organization's group, would you have a different angle, or what did you find, or what do you think are those key challenges again that you might have faced, or you think entrepreneurs should be aware of when they're looking to implement these, and how can they avoid it even better?
Thank you. Thank you so much for, first of all, calling me to be a part of this very, very elite panel. A lot of respect and love to you, Rana. Wonderful to see your journey. Biology was just not my subject. So, double my respects to you for that. I'm more a math and a physics child, and couldn't save myself to get myself to draw diagrams in biology. So yeah, wonderful to be, sitting alongside with you. And I think, we're all one fraternity. I think all that Rana was describing is very similar to the experience that we've gone through as well. I think when we go about asking for support, it's always up to down, and we're always in the receiving end. But I think when you sit on an even platform trying to solve another person's eagerness to be a part of the solution of many of the problems that all of us are facing that and trying to solve, I think then the platform becomes very different, where we are co-collaborating to create solutions and then making sure that it is sufficiently resourced and funded to close. Dumping into what Pollinate does, an organization that's focused on SDG 1, 5, and 7. It's an evolution that happened over a period of years. We are 12 years old today. We originally started by providing clean energy access to the most marginalized communities that live off the grid. And these are communities that live off the grid even today. Communities that are formed because they migrate from rural to urban in search of livelihoods, and communities even in the rural areas that plunge into darkness after the powers are available for daytime irrigation and agricultural needs, are not having access to a whole lot of grid facilities that we have. So clean energy products like solar lights, fans, and other clean cooking appliances were made available, accessible through flexible payment plans to these communities. And what we observed is that women were actually saving up the money to buy these products to make their families' living conditions a lot more different from what it was before. Earlier, we used to burn kerosene after sunset, burn candle after sunset. We all know how toxic it is. The fumes that have engulfs the entire family, and even the young ones end up breathing that such toxic air. We were eliminating all of that, and we were providing a clean source of light for all the children to study and have access to clean air as well. So that model that we have introduced was in 2019. We moved from being a distribution entity to communities that lived off the grid to identifying one woman from that community. Now, thank you so much for flipping the slide. So we've identified one woman from the community, invested in her with entrepreneurship skills, which we believe is a deep-rooted long-term skill. Here comes the important part. We don't apply any filter of her having educational qualifications or read-write capability or even arithmetic capability to run a micro business. We just want her to have the keen intent to be able to be a part of a change that she wants to bring for herself and for her family. We run the entrepreneurship training for her over 3 levels, level 1, level 2, and level 3. And this is the icing in the cake. We provide her with the clean inventory product bouquet at zero cost of no interest that she will take and distribute and sell within the community, retain the margin, and keep rotating that capital and continue to build the micro business, thus providing clean energy access to the entire community members that are all still looking for a cleaner, safer, and a healthier environment. So in summation, we focus on women. And when we say women, how the focus that we provide is through entrepreneurship skilling that will help her distribute clean energy products. And these clean energy products immediately improve the health and living conditions of everyone in the community. And the woman has access to a dignified source of income and livelihood. So that's the integrated model that Pollinate has been running in India and in Nepal, in several states, and in about 8 states in India and 3 districts in Nepal. I'll pause and I'm open to questions and clarifications.
Thank you. Thank you so very much for that, Sujatha. No, I know that there are questions, so I'm going to beg everyone. I know you have questions, just keep them there. Start putting them in the chat groups. We'll get back to them because we have so much that we want to ask these two incredible women. And so I'm going, and I like how you thought about it. You know, we have a saying in this part of the world around, you know, educating the woman, and you're educating an entire community. And I like how you honed in on, you know, that's the savings culture that came from observing what the women were doing and then targeting them as a way of penetrating. And it's wonderful to see that applicable in different parts of the world. So it's important to really just study again the organizations or the field that you're looking to enter into and work out how best to basically get them to see what it is you're trying to achieve, and hopefully co-creating, as Rana has also talked about. And so let's see, let's go into what role we think leadership really plays. And so my next question, if I go to Rana, is what role do you think leadership plays in driving this implementation of these initiatives that we're talking about within mainstream business operations? And in essence, again, looking at your experience, are there any examples that you can share that have been successful when it comes to the role that you think leadership can play in implementing these?
So yeah, thank you for that question. It's very important because, and actually I'm going to highlight 2 things. One, when we talk about leadership in business, many times you hear a lot of talk about change, about, yes, we want to work with social innovation, we want to work with the SDGs, we want to be more equitable, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But when you really go into that organization, you realize that that leadership vision has not been translated or filtered into all the layers and all the employees within the organization. And this is not just about private sector. You find it in multilaterals and the UN. What people preach is not always what they do. And so this is a shout out to the leadership that if you sincerely want to make a difference, you need to have an effort in making that theory of change within every employee at every level within your organization, and to help them walk the walk, because it's a transformational, it's a frame shift, a total frame shift in how you look. What do you value? What are your priorities? And if that is not translated, it's not enough to just talk about it, because when the saying, when the tire hits the road, they will revert to their old way of doing things unconsciously. So this has to be hammered in, and groups to come and talk about it and reflect on it. So that's number one. And there are many stories about that where people say things, but then when the real thing happens, they don't deliver. The second thing that I think is more broader, talking about systems change, is that we need to also change how we as social innovators, because this is the group, how we look at business and private sector, and how private sector looks at us, in the sense that we should not be the nice spice or sugar on the top, or the checklist that we take, or the something we do so that we can earn some respect or some title or credibility, or because we have to do it, not because we want to do it. So how do you do that, right? How are we considered as social innovators equals at the table, and have equal power dynamics, that it's a chair, that the seat has three prongs. It needs private sector, it needs government, and it needs the social innovators. That chair will not sit, will not balance if we are not there. And I think that should be brought up front and central and talked about. Now, today, we have tools that can help us push that forward. So I'm sure many are familiar with the new UN resolution that came out last year, the UN Social and Solidarity Economy resolution. And yes, this is not a binding resolution, but it's a tool that we as social innovators can share with private sector and government, for that matter, to help push forward the importance of including us as social innovators at the table at every decision making, because we are a power that should be reckoned with, and it is to their advantage to include us at the table. So let's learn about this UN resolution. Let's use it to our advantage. And I'll give you an example. So the Schwab Foundation has created something called the Global Alliance. And this Global Alliance is a number of, I think, 60 plus companies who sincerely are coming forward, wanting to work with social innovators to change how they do business. Now, this is the first step on the road, right? That, okay, let's talk, let's sit at the same table, let's acknowledge that we are peers and working on this together. But I want to add my third point, which is, where do we want to go? This is just the beginning. This is not the final solution. And what I want to draw in everybody's imagination is the vision where the social innovator is not separate from the private sector, where the private sector is transformed over time to become a social innovator, right? That's the ultimate. And by doing that, they will have to shift their values, they will have to shift their frameworks, but that's what systems change is all about. So if we have that vision way down the road, and we start by having these conversations, and maybe the first practical step for people who want to go home with a practical thing to do is to find those champions within the private sector, within these companies, and appreciate them, boost their morale, and say, yes, you can change from within, right? So they don't always depend on us and throw it on us, but it's about how can we, again, back to the co-creation, but this time for them to lead, so they transform from within to become the business changes its all value and becomes a social innovator at the end of the day.
Oh, I'm going to stop you there for a second. There's just so much good in that, Rana. I think we should all be social innovators. I'm going to steal a line from the famous Chimamanda Adichie. He said we should all be feminists. And taking that and extrapolating, right? Because that is exactly what we're talking about. We want
Pearl, as a scientist in biology, I say we are all social innovators because it's an innate quality in why we survived as a species. It's part of our evolution.
Oh, there you go.
That's the hallmark. Yes, we are all social innovators. Sorry for interrupting you. Yeah.
I think not at all. I think Catalyst 2030, we should get some intellectual property on that and just push this out and make people understand it, because that is ultimately where we want to be as society. And there's so many things that you said in that I'm trying to prioritize here. It starts from the head. You've got to make sure that this buy-in around the changes that you want to see in the organization really not from the head, but it's got to go through the entire organization, and there has to be buy-in, there's got to be ownership. If not, it just stops at that top position. You're talking about getting to the points where you're working collaboratively. People don't feel othered by what you're doing as a social innovator or an entrepreneur. And then, of course, just thinking about how you go about doing it. So we get to the point where everybody is really doing good and doing well, which is what we're trying to do here. And so it brings me to the next question for Sujatha, because you have answered this to some extent, but just as to a large extent, but to say to Sujatha, can you think again of ways in which maybe at your organization, you've seen this work quite well, how the organization has then been able to work with aligning those goals within their business strategy? So it's not just theoretical, but just some practical examples, because there'll be people on this call who are thinking, okay, I want to do this. What should I be thinking about? What should I do? How?
So this is a wonderful panel. I'm already getting very excited. So I'd like to have this leadership piece split into 3 parts, right?
Okay.
Taking off from what, Dana said. The first part is us as leaders. How do we influence the kind of people that we have in our organization? All the points that, Dana just mentioned about walking the talk, making the team sensitized to say, this is not a job. This is a mission. This is the vision that you all signed up for, and constantly sensitizing them to understand that they are not doing this as a means to an end. It's solving or transforming people's lives one at a time, that we do the investment or the intervention on, that in turn has got a ripple effect on the entire community. Sensitizing every employee in the organization is what each one of us as leaders should do to make sure that we are able to get that highly involved, committed, dedicated work coming from our organizations. And I try to do that consciously, making sure that we keep ensuring that we demonstrate and repeat and communicate that very well. That's from an organization's leader point of view. The second is the women we work with. We want them to be the leaders in those communities as well. That we put as our first impact outcome goal. We do not want her to just become an entrepreneur. We want her to stand for herself, make her create a voice for herself, and also a voice for the rest of the community members, and make sure that with that, she participates in decision making, not only inside her family, but for her community as well. And there are several examples that we can think of. One is a very solid example during COVID, when we started providing our women entrepreneurs, not just, the entrepreneurship training, but in Feb 2020, we started providing them with hand washing, social distancing inputs. And we made the woman percolate this information to the entire community. And right in the middle of 2020, when they were all bringing groceries, what happened in India, how the second wave was fairly, traumatic and devastating. When there was an entity that came to give out groceries, the entity that came was standing very close to each other. And my woman entrepreneur walked up to her and said, please stand 1 meter apart, and I will bring my community members 1 meter apart. A solid example of how a woman, when she is empowered and she understands what she can stand for, takes on that leadership role and is able to keep her community safe from those people that were entering the community from far away. So I think that's the second part, with the kind of women that we work with, how as a leader, each one of us have a role to play. The third is where it gets very interesting. I've been trying to think through this, and I think I'll definitely collaborate with Rana deeper after this call as well. There is so much that we can, kind of think together. This is a thought that has been in my head for the last 6-7 months. Organizations, let's take the Fortune 500 organizations. I'll take a minute or two to, get the entire, consensus of this group here.
Of course, so sorry. There's so much. We have 1 minute to finish this question, and then because there's so much I want to get out of both of you.
Yes.
Please. Thank you.
Yes. So if we just take the Fortune 500 company, they spend more than 20 billion on CSR per year, right? And we'll take 10% of the Fortune 500, which is 50 companies, and you have 17 SDGs. You just rotate 17 1 SDGs, and each company will have 3 SDGs to themselves, right? These 50 companies. Or Rana has 5, I have 3 SDG goals. We will have at least 30% of this 50 companies, which is 15 companies that are focused on our SDGs that can support us. Rather than keeping us outside as an entity that is delivering on a promise or a commitment that they've made, I'm coming close to what Rana is talking about. Incubate us inside. Do not make us keep repeating our ask year after year on what we are trying to do. Instead, take social objectives inside. Keep us as part of your verticals. If I have 4 verticals of product line or business line or geographic line, keep us as one of your verticals and help us make the difference without a leak. Every time money comes through CSR to us, there is a tax wipeout. Then there is a whole lot of infrastructure that I need to build. It wipes out not, more than 40 to 45% is left with us to actually spend on the woman that we want to transform. How transformational will it be? At the outset, at the paper audit level, it will be 2x because of the simple wipeout of tax and other costs that we all incur otherwise. I would really want to throw this idea up in the universe, and I don't know how
Thank
many
you.
of you have
I'm
influence.
telling you, look, the chat group, you had people responding. Somebody said entrepreneurs. It's coming inwards. It's that internal ownership. It's putting it into your strategy. It's getting the ownership from the organization. And I've heard that very loud and clear from both.
And like Rana said, give me a table in that room. I want to be a part of your board discussion. I am your vertical.
Yeah.
I will solve poverty, create a cleaner environment, and together with Rana, we can even make this place a great place of stories that people read and enjoy for generations together.
Absolutely. No, and it's going back again to this collaboration. That's why I keep saying that SDG 17 is probably my favorite, which is talking about how we can basically be working together for the goals, because again, it keeps coming back. We can't do this thing in silos, bringing people together. It's going to make this work. Ownership. Now, if you're looking at how we can ensure that these strategies, right? So the businesses have bought into it. They agree with what it is you're saying. How do you help them then ensure that there's long-term sustainability, long-term continuity on these goals, and that it's scalable? And so this is having passed the test around them wanting to do this. What would both of you suggest in 1 minute around helping them with scaling this, helping them ensure that it's sustainable? If you could share your thoughts, I'll start with Rana, please.
Yes, thank you. That's the most important question. And it hinges on shifting our value system and our priorities and building trust. So in order to have scalability and sustainability, we need to depend on those women, the ones Sujitha talked about, We Love Reading ambassadors, and everybody who works in this sector. We need to trust those local people, those proximate leaders, that they know best what works. And when we trust them, truly trust them, then they will develop the solutions that work. And because they develop them, that gives them that sense of agency. And when you have, this is based on research, if you do something that you have agency and control over and you have a sense of ownership, then you will make sure it succeeds because it's your baby, it's your project. So your success is inherent in the success of that solution that you have created. And that's why when we talk about scaling, it's not scaling the solution. It's scaling that mindset of I can, I am smart, I know my problems, I have the confidence. And we've done research showing that those women, for example, in our context, who have done We Love Reading, where they own it and they get all the credit, we are in the shadows. Those women, their life satisfaction went up, their empowerment went up, their well-being went up, their feeling of confidence and self-efficacy all went up. And that's all what you want. Any country, all it wants is that its citizens have a sense of belonging and that they're going to fix things and not depend on anyone else to come and save them. And so that's why we have to flip it. It's not about giving out solutions. It's about helping people find out that they themselves have it all in their hands and that they can come up with those solutions. And therefore, the word even scaling is based on a more capitalistic money-based, which is not how we're going to solve the problems of the world. It has to be value-driven and based on that. And what will follow is how you measure. So it's not about measuring numbers and money. And no, it's about measuring, did really people change from within? And is that change sustainable across generations? Because if you create a sustainable change across generations, then you've solved it, right? And then people can start solving new problems as they come. Each one in their own way, and that gives you that localization, right? So yes, we share universal values, but we are also diverse, and we need to respect the differences between different parts of the world, different communities, and the only way to do that is by trusting people on the ground that they know best what to do.
Thank you so much. That is fantastic. I've been told the time's up, so I'm just going to take in 1 more minute, please. Sujatha's response to, let me see, I think I have one chance. Yeah, to that as well.
Is it, did you mention my name or is it something?
I think the sound, I think the sound went off for a second. And so just a final word of advice in 1 minute. What would you tell organizations who are looking to embark on this journey of transforming their strategy into action in 1 minute? What would you say?
Absolutely. I think we all need to think of solving this problem at scale. We need to ensure that organizations that have proven solutions and have, showcased outcomes and outputs that have been meaningful in getting the transformation out should be well invested and well resourced. And I think all of us need to hold hand together. I think many of us are doing all of this in silos, and the impact is happening in spurts. If we are able to hold hands together, I think our advocacy and our voice will reach longer, farther, deeper to the right kind of, audiences. And I think all the communities that we work with have the same solutions that they need. One is doing, something else, and we are doing something else, and both are important. But if we work together, we are able to collaborate, we are able to leverage our resources, and we are able to provide the sharp focus and intervention that is required to bring in the transformation, which will be deep-rooted and stay long-term for the person that we are working with, for the community that we are working with. And for the problem that we are solving, it will also be a lot more deeper and efficiently solved. So I think holding hands is important, looking at scale is important, and making sure that we are well-resourced, and making sure that we have that, I'm going to steal this phrase, that chair around the table for us at the time of strategy, and not as something that's happening outside the organization.
That was an afterthought at the right timetable. Thank you so much for that, Rana and Sujatha. So very quickly going into questions before we have to go into breakout rooms. From Paul. Paul has says, thank you to both of you, and that he loves that you're so passionate. Now, how do you make sure you avoid dogmatic approaches? And so what he's talking about is, in some cases, the passion will conflict with empathy and co-creation. Let me make sure that I have this question right. He says, both of you are so passionate. How do you make sure that you avoid dogmatic approaches in passing on this information? In some cases, passion conflicts with empathy and co-creation. Now, I'm just going to ask, if Paul is on here, would you like to add a little bit of flesh to this question, just to make sure that Rana understands and we all understand it?
Yeah, I think so. Partly you already somehow answered it. And it's not really just a question, it's more somehow something that I see as a challenge for all of us. So it's just always this balancing between knowing what should be done, what are your values, and be empathic and understand that different people have different needs and different views on the world. So it's just more something I would like to share. Or
Okay.
do you have this in mind? What is your way to deal with that? So maybe that's a better question than.
I see. Oh, thank you so much for that, Paul. And I see Rana's nodding her head.
Yeah.
Please,
So no, that's a very important question. And it's a spectrum, right? In the worst case scenario, it's colonizing, when I don't respect and I want to impose, and which unfortunately is part of sometimes humanitarian aid and development. It's like, we know what you need, we're going to give it to you, on one end. And on the, so how can we push towards the more balanced, or even more to the other side, where everybody's doing their thing? But then you're afraid, do they really know what they should do? But again, that's not the right way of thinking. To solve it, I think it is that we need to trust. We don't trust. It's about building trust. And it's about true trust, that I trust you and I know that you know what's best for you, just as I want you to trust me that I know what's best for me. So this mutual trust, this mutual respect, that can only come with communication, engagement, and talking to each other, and acknowledging that we are different, and acknowledging that we to agree to disagree. Now, that doesn't mean that we all have to have the same opinion in the end. No, what it means is to agree to disagree. And the good people who are good at that are people who are comfortable with ambiguity. And this is based on research, that some people, they need closure and everything has to be their way or no other way. And those are not the best people to negotiate and to create these relationships. So it's about being comfortable with ambiguity, understanding people come from different backgrounds and they can be correct or not. That's not the point. And trusting them, because if they don't learn from their mistakes and you give them everything ready-made, that's not right. They need to learn, and we will learn from them, and not always to think that we, whoever we are, know all the solutions and know all the answers.
I love that. That place of presumption is really dangerous, isn't it? And I've heard this so many times from quite a few of you today already. It's just being able to stop, to listen, to learn, to pivot as you learn from the people who are closest to the problem, being mature enough to pass it on to them, being humble enough to co-create with them, to make those changes. So thank you very much for that question, Paul, because it's just a reminder again and a chance for that to be reiterated. Great. So it takes me on to another question that we have. The one that Judith has asked, I believe, can be dealt with after the call. Franz Gomez has said, how do we change the business as usual model? So I'm going to pass this on to Sujatha, saying, how do we change this business as usual model? Not even the climate emergency seems to be a moving thing for companies. So this is not an easy question. This is an open, it's a grand question, you know? And so I guess there's the feeling and the restlessness that individuals have, that is this moving at all? Is it changing? If it's changing, what's happening? Is it, you know, what do we do to just ensure that we're shaking up the status quo and it's not just lip service? Any thoughts on that, Sujatha?
Yeah. So, and this is where, you know, as entrepreneurs, we've kind of always looked at disruption, right? We've not accepted business as usual. We've looked at finding solutions, finding answers, and created that disruption. And this is one such, right? We want to understand how organizations, when they put, you know, CSR money outside and give it to someone like us, you know, the kind of leak that happens along the way through taxes and levies and everything, versus putting this as an inside goal, is a disruptive thought, is something different. It's not business as usual. It is something that one has to experiment. And I think only if you experiment and keep doing it and keep your ears to the ground, listen in and observe and understand how this is working differently, or it may not work differently. I could just be, you know, pipe dreaming here, but I am wanting to give it a shot, wanting people to come and experiment this and see if it works. It means there is going to be a lot of compliance changes. But before we get there, an experiment is not something that is going to do a lot of harm. It's definitely going to teach us a lot, and we can keep experimenting. I think that's what, as entrepreneurs, all of us do. We don't have a dogmatic approach to saying my solution is the best solution. There is a solution. We'll put our efforts to it. If it works, great. We at least know, no, that won't work. That's a learning. And we'll go ahead and try something else. So I think it's important to keep trying, to keep experimenting, because if this was a problem that had cookie cutter solution, we won't be here sitting talking about it. There'll be big corporates that would be sitting and making a business out of it, right? So I think definitely these are not problems that have solutions. So definitely it's not business as usual. And that's where it gets exciting, right? There is so much to solve.
Absolutely. I love that. That's a wonderful way to just wrap this up. This has been fantastic. Thank you so much to Rana and Sujatha. And because we're very keen on making this as practical as possible, thank you for the questions to everyone who asked questions. I know there's still some questions that we might be able to handle after the breakout sessions, but we would love for you all to go into breakout rooms. And the plan for the breakout rooms is to briefly introduce yourself and your organizations with the other participants, give you a chance to talk about your organization's experience with collaborating with the private sector. We're giving people time to come in. You might have time to get in a question or two if you're lucky, to Rana and Sujatha. Well, that was great. That was great to have a chance to speak and hear some ideas from individuals. And thank you for the participation. You know, the aim with these sessions is to be as practical as possible. Please look through the chat group as well and identify people who are calling in from countries that you are perhaps operating out of, countries that you want to get into, private sector that you want to work with. You never know who you might find in the chat room. So please, please feel free to make those linkages. Okay. I think, do we have everybody in here now? Yes. Thank you, everyone. So I think I'm going to hand over to Cindy to talk us through this slide.
Yep, I will just try to keep it as short as possible. Thank you so much, Pearl, for the amazing moderation. I am Cindy, as you can see from my name. I work with Catalyst, and one of the initiatives that I work with mostly is the Social Change Innovators, where recently you can not only find the Influencing Mainstream Business course for the learning series is we are talking about, but also a lot of other amazing things. First of all, SCI is an open resource platform in which is created not only for academics, but also for social innovators, social entrepreneurs, and everyone that is helping to make a social impact. On the site, you can not only upload, but find resources, more than 2,000, in different topics and regions, which can, of course, help with your work. I'm going to share on the chat all the links so that you can access the website. So yeah, back to you, Pearl. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Cindy. Let me see. So please, could you have a look at the chat? For some reason, I can't access it immediately. If there's one more question, I think I might be able to squeeze it in if I get through this. Whilst we're waiting for that, please could you move me through to the next slide? Yes. Okay. And so thank you very much to everybody for joining in. We're only as good as the individuals who join in and who participate and who give us feedback really on how we can make this better. We hope that this has been useful. One of our favorite quotes over here is, I hear and I forget, I see and I remember, I do and I understand. We don't need to go into too much detail around that, but I'm sure that you can appreciate by trying to make this practical, by trying to have different sessions, you do get a feel for what we're talking about here. And we're hoping that by this sort of interaction, the messaging and the chance for a better understanding certainly comes through. So please, we would love for you to share with us if this session has helped with your understanding really of how to influence mainstream business. And so, like I said, we would love for you to basically fill out the poll that's going to be shared shortly. Oh, I can see somebody missed the first session. Perhaps there might be a chance to share something along those lines. And if from the first session, if there is, the team will post that in the chat group. But in the interim, we would love for it if you could just fill out the poll that you should all be able to access now. And yeah, it just helps us with improving the content and the nature of the interaction. Thank you, Cindy, for answering. So recordings, from what I can see, will be shared. And if you reach out to Cindy, okay, it's even been shared, even better. Thank you, technology. Thank you, Karen. And so if you missed out on the first session, there you have it. There's a link to the YouTube channel where you can catch it. These things are worth it. We hope you appreciate it. Please give us your feedback on how it can be better. Thank you so much. So as we're filling that out, the polls, I'm just going to speak to you about something that is coming up that is incredibly exciting. So for Catalyst 2030, those of you who are following us please follow on our social media platforms. Catalyzing Change Week is coming up very soon, 6th to the 10th of May, 2024. It's going to be here very soon. It is the largest gathering that you're going to get virtually of social entrepreneurs, social innovators, basically challenging, speaking, sharing, encouraging each other on topics dear to our heart. Information around this is going to be shared in the chat group, I believe, as well. Of course, go onto our website, catalyst2030.net. It will also be there. 6th to the 10th of May, a wonderful chance for you all to learn from a myriad of individuals in this space from across the world. You do not want to miss that. There we go. So we have our various social media platforms, from Facebook to X or Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, everything is there for you. Please follow us to get more information on CCW Week. Now, in true fashion, one of the things that we also try to do is, as we end this, is just to have people share, and we'll encourage this as well, even from our wonderful speakers today. Whatever you're grateful for, what are you grateful for? Having gone through the session, whatever else it is that's going on in the organization, please share in the chat group what you're grateful for. We would appreciate that as we bring this session to a close. Okay, so thank you so very much to everybody for today's session. We appreciate that it is quite late for some people. A special thanks to our fantastic panelists today. We have Rana, we have Sujatha. You guys were fantastic. We don't take it for granted at all. Thank you so much. I know that some of our speakers had to leave earlier on today. And still appreciate it. Joshua, thank you so much for your time today. And to those who have participated in one way or the other, who've discussed, chatted with each other, please continue to keep the linkages open and the discussions open. It's been fantastic listening and learning from you all today. Have a good rest of day wherever you are joining us from. Thank you all. Goodbye.